The restaurant was nearly empty. Rain pattered gently against the glass windows, streaking down like silent tears. Inside, a single man sat at a large table meant for 6, staring at the candle flickering before him. The waiter had already refilled his glass 3 times, though he hadn't taken a sip since the first. That man was Edward Monroe, a name that once echoed across newspapers and business channels, a self-made millionaire who built an empire from nothing. But tonight, he wasn't the man the world saw. He was just a lonely soul, surrounded by quiet and memories that wouldn't fade. Every Friday, he came to the same restaurant. Every Friday, he ordered 2 meals, one for himself, and one for the woman who would never come again. His late wife, Clara. He had promised her that he'd keep their Friday dinners alive, even after she was gone. And so he did. For 5 long years. The waiter approached softly. "Mr. Monroe, would you like me to bring the dessert now?" Edward's voice was low, almost a whisper. "Not yet. Let's wait a few minutes, just in case." The waiter nodded gently and walked away, his eyes heavy with quiet sympathy. Everyone in the restaurant knew his story, the rich man who had everything, but no one to share it with. Edward sighed, glancing at the empty chair across from him. "Clara," he murmured, "you'd laugh at me if you saw me like this. Still saving you a seat." Just then, the restaurant door opened, letting in a rush of cold air. Edward looked up absently, and froze. A woman stood there, drenched from the rain. Her coat was thin, clinging to her trembling frame. And beside her, holding her hand tightly, was a little girl, no older than 7, her face pale, her hair wet and tangled, her big eyes searching the room nervously. They didn't belong here. The restaurant was upscale, elegant, the kind of place where the cheapest dish cost more than a week's groceries. The hostess started to approach them, ready to explain that they might be in the wrong place. But before she could, the woman spoke softly. "Please," she said, her voice shaking, "we're not here to eat. My daughter's hungry. I saw the lights inside, and I wondered if someone might have some leftovers or bread to spare." The hostess hesitated, glancing toward the manager. A few diners looked away uncomfortably. The woman lowered her eyes in embarrassment, and the little girl clung tighter to her. Edward's heart clenched. He could almost hear Clara's voice in his head. "If you ever see someone hungry, Eddie, feed them. Not because you can, but because you should." He rose quietly, pushing back his chair. Every head turned as he approached the woman and her child. When he reached them, the little girl hid behind her mother's legs, shy and scared. The mother looked up, startled to see him, the tall man in the expensive suit, silver-haired but gentle-eyed. "Sir, I'm sorry," she said quickly. "We didn't mean to disturb anyone." Edward interrupted softly. "Your daughter's hungry, you said?" The woman nodded, swallowing hard. "She hasn't eaten since morning. We've been trying to find a shelter but they're full tonight." Edward knelt slightly to meet the little girl's eyes. "Hello there," he said warmly. "What's your name?" She peeked at him timidly. "Lily," she whispered. "That's a beautiful name," Edward smiled. "You know, Lily, I was just about to have dinner all by myself. And I think food tastes much better when shared. Would you and your mom join me?" The woman blinked, stunned. "Oh no, sir, we couldn't possibly." "Please," Edward said simply. "You'd be doing me a favor." For a long moment, she hesitated, pride and desperation battling in her eyes. Then she nodded quietly. "Thank you," she murmured. "I'm Sarah." They sat together at Edward's table, Sarah still wet from the rain, Lily sitting on the edge of her chair, staring wide-eyed at the candlelight and the shiny silverware. The waiter, visibly moved, brought them towels, warm soup, and hot chocolate for the girl. Lily took a sip, and her face lit up like sunrise. "It's so good," she giggled. Edward chuckled softly. I'm glad you like it. Sarah tried to apologize again, but Edward wouldn't let her. Please, he said, just eat. You're safe here. As they began their meal, conversation slowly blossomed. Lily talked about her favorite colors, her dream of becoming a teacher, and how she loved drawing big houses with happy people inside. Edward listened, captivated, his heart warming for the first time in years. Sarah explained in a low voice that she'd lost her job 3 months ago. Her husband had left when Lily was 2. They'd been living in a small apartment until last week, when the rent became impossible. Tonight, she had walked for miles, searching for help. I just didn't know where else to go, she whispered. I promised her I'd find something to eat before bedtime. Edward nodded quietly. You kept your promise. That matters. As dinner went on, laughter began to fill the table. Lily told silly jokes. Edward shared stories about his late wife, how she used to sneak extra sugar into her coffee, how she'd laugh at his terrible cooking. At one point, Lily pointed at the empty chair beside Edward. Who was supposed to sit there, she asked innocently. Edward's smile faded slightly. Someone very special, he said softly. My wife. She passed away a few years ago. Lily tilted her head. Do you miss her? Every day, Edward replied, his voice trembling just a little. The little girl reached out and took his hand. Maybe she's happy you're not eating alone tonight. Edward froze. Something in that simple, innocent sentence pierced straight through his heart. He looked at Lily, her small fingers wrapped around his. And he felt something he hadn't felt in years, peace. After dinner, Edward asked the manager to pack extra food for tomorrow. Then he turned to Sarah. Do you have a place to stay tonight? She shook her head. We'll try the shelter again. Edward hesitated. Then, making a decision, he said quietly, I have a guest house. It's safe and warm. You can stay there, just for tonight, until we figure something out. Sarah's eyes widened. Sir, I couldn't possibly accept that. I insist, Edward said gently. Please. You'd be helping me fill an empty home. And so, that night, for the first time in years, the gates of the Monroe estate opened for guests. The next morning, Edward found Lily in the kitchen with his old cook, helping her whisk pancake batter. When she saw him, she ran up with a grin. Good morning, Mr. Eddie, she chirped. I made pancakes. He laughed, the sound echoing through the quiet mansion like sunlight breaking through clouds. Well, then, he said, I suppose I'd better be the taste tester. Sarah joined them soon after, looking rested for the first time. This house is beautiful, she said softly. Thank you for letting us stay. Edward smiled. It used to be full of laughter. Feels good to hear some again. Over the next few days, Edward found himself enjoying life in ways he thought he'd forgotten. Lily's laughter filled every corner of his home. She played in the garden, drew pictures of Mr. Eddie's big house, and even convinced him to have ice cream for dinner one night. Sarah, meanwhile, offered to help around the house. She cleaned, cooked, and chatted with him over coffee. She was humble, kind, and full of quiet strength. Edward realized that the emptiness he'd carried for so long was slowly being replaced, not by money or success, but by something simple and real. Family. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset from the balcony, Sarah turned to him. I need to thank you, she said. You've done more for us than anyone ever has. Edward smiled faintly. You've given me something too. A reason to smile again. She looked down, then said quietly, we'll move out soon. I found a job interview tomorrow. You've helped us enough. But Edward hesitated. Sarah, I was actually hoping you'd consider something. She looked at him, curious. I need a housekeeper, someone I can trust. You'd have a salary, your own space, and you could stay here with Lily. Only if you want to. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. Are you sure? Edward nodded. Absolutely. Weeks turned into months. The mansion, once silent, was alive again. Lily decorated the halls with her drawings. Sarah kept the home warm and bright. And Edward, he found himself laughing more, sleeping better, and even playing the piano again, something he hadn't touched since Clara's passing. One evening, Lily ran up to him, holding a crayon drawing. "Look, Mr. Eddie. It's you, me, and Mommy. And there's a lady with wings behind us, that's your wife. She's an angel watching over you." Edward took the picture, his eyes misty. "That's beautiful, Lily," he whispered. "Thank you." He framed it that very night and hung it above the fireplace. Time moved on, and life found rhythm again. Edward attended Lily's school recital, clapping the loudest when she sang. He helped Sarah buy her first car. They celebrated birthdays, holidays, and simple mornings filled with pancakes and laughter. Then one evening, as they sat around the dinner table, the same table where it all began, Lily looked at him and asked, "Mr. Eddie, are we your family now?" Edward looked at Sarah, who smiled softly, tears glimmering in her eyes. He reached out, holding Lily's hand in his. "You were, from the moment you asked if you could join me." Years later, that story became one the whole town knew, about the lonely millionaire who thought he'd dine alone forever, until a little girl and her mother walked in from the rain. And though the newspapers once wrote about his wealth, his legacy wasn't measured in money anymore. It was in kindness, in love rediscovered, and in a simple truth that changed everything. Sometimes, when you think you're saving someone, you're really the one being saved.